Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing the best books I read in 2022. Right, where do we start? I don't know. I read 24 books in 2022, which isn't that much. This year, one of my sort of soft resolutions is to make reading more of a priority. So being more intentional, but not forcing yourself as well. I think it's important to know why you're reading, not just to hit some goal, but to appreciate the art of literature. And that's what I'm going to explore in my video today. The books that sang to me, that filled my heart with a love of literature in 2022. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is not discovering because I did read Preludes and Nocturnes a year before, I think, but falling in love with The Sandman. Half because the TV show was coming out and I was like, I need to explore more of this because I've only read one of the comics, and I knew that the show was going to cover the first two comics, so I was like, oh, quick. But I continued reading. I'm up to, I think, number 5 in the series, so I think I'm halfway through the series as a whole. But essentially, I really enjoyed a selection of stories from The Doll's House and Dream Country. So the story I most enjoyed, I don't know whether that's English, we'll find out, but my favourite story in The Doll's House was the one where he meets up with his friend over the years. I thought it was just magical, brilliant and fantastic. But essentially he asks for immortality, he gets it, and for a while he's living the life, and then suddenly he becomes the poorest of the poor, but he's still you know what, I still want to live forever. And yes sir, me too. I think I would be the same. Just really enjoyed it. It kind of spoke to me because I'm obsessed with the idea of immortality and escaping death. And yeah, I just loved the magic of it. Then in Dream Country, my favourite story, I must admit, I did enjoy all of them to a certain extent. I thought the Shakespeare one was okay. I quite liked it because I like Shakespeare. A Dream of a Thousand Cats. Fucking loved it. Love cats. Loved it. It was also one of my favourite episodes of the TV show. Yeah, which corresponds, my favourite stories in these comics were my favourite episodes of the TV show. So my favourite episodes were essentially the one where he wanders around with death. I thought that was magical, sensational, beautiful. And then, the second half of the episode, he meets his friend. Then I loved the extra episodes that we got a few weeks after the show aired. So that was A Dream of a Thousand Cats and Calliope, which I thought it was genius. Just the idea of trapping a muse because you want to become a famous writer, and just sort of, it's quite sickening. And just the fact that it's these male writers entrapping this female essence of inspiration. It's very, very modern, and I love it. And that's what I love about The Sandman. It was made in the 80s and the 90s, and it's just so ultra modern and just a phenomenal story about stories. Gorgeous, loved it so much. The next book that I absolutely adored this month was Kwake Emzi's You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty. I loved this. I devoured it because it was a romance, and I didn't expect it. Well, no, I kind of thought if anyone's going to write a romance book that I'm going to enjoy, it's going to be a Kwake Emzi. And boy, was I right. I loved this. I thought it was beautiful, mature, and different. None of the characters are perfect. It's an imperfect situation. And there's a deep well of sadness in this as well. But out of it becomes a beautiful romance. I can't wait to read their next novel. But yeah, I think they made an announcement that they've got a new romance book coming out. And I was like, oh my gosh. And then it's in 2024. Great. It sounds fantastic though, and I can't wait to read it, but really? Why do you tease us like that? Anyway, next book, it could only find its way onto this list. The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was quite the undertaking. I still haven't fully absorbed everything because it is so rich and full of information and beauty, and at some point I want to go through it all and sort of annotate it and look at all of the myths and legends and the stories that inspired it. But it does kind of make you think about the stories to come after it totally differently. Like, watching Lord of the Rings after reading this, you just notice so much more, like the parallels between Beren and Luthien and Arwen and Aragorn is like one of the most glaringly obvious ones, but there's just so many like little tidbits in it, and I can only imagine how this is going to inform rereads of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, which I'll probably like maybe reread this year. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's very dense, so it's not for everyone, but if you give it a go and you persevere, you will be delighted. Next, we've got Upstream by Mary Oliver. I think this is the only fully non-fiction book I read last year, because I don't really read non-fiction. But this is beautiful, eye-opening, and just a soft hug. Yeah, I think you could describe it as that, like a soft hug from a wise woman. I just love how she explores nature and just goes wandering in the majesty of nature, essentially. Yeah, like, I don't really know what else to say about this other than it makes you think, and it makes you slow down and sort of look at the world a bit differently to what you did before. I've always been someone that I kind of look around me all the time, but quite often you still don't observe everything. And yeah, like I would say this feels very cozy and just a little bit of magic, essentially, but very almost mundane. I don't know how to explain it without, like, mundane, I think a lot of people have connotations of like, oh, really boring, but I mean just like the softness of just everyday existence, that there is beauty in the mundane, and this collection of essays explores that beautifully. Next up, we've got Second Foundation by Isaac Asimov. I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think my favourite part of it was the second half with the mule. I thought it was just so riveting. I was like turning page after page. I just adored this story, and I thought it was really enthralling. And I love how just, I don't know, like how interesting the whole Foundation series is. I haven't finished the whole series. I've finished the initial trilogy, and I think I've got 2 more books, maybe? I can't remember. I don't know how many books there are in the series, but I know that there was an initial trilogy, and then years and years later he then continued it. So I'm intrigued to delve back into it at some point, but I thought I'd give myself a breather between it, so that to very vaguely imitate the breather between the initial trilogy and the rest of them. I don't know, pretentious nerd here. Forget I said any of that, because that's really just, yeah, that is pretentious. Get out of here, Catherine. Then we have The Secret History. This was the last book I read in 2022. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not going to talk too in depth about it, because I did talk about it in my December wrap up, and the sun is slowly encroaching across my face, so we need to finish this video as soon as possible. Essentially, it's a modern Greek tragedy about a bunch of pretentious students in a university in America. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was intriguing. I thought it was thoughtful in its critique of society, elitism, class division, and just that things are normally not what they seem. So like these students very much feel like from the point of view of Richard, these students feel very much like a step above. Or there's almost a magic to this elite cluster of Greek students, and he wants to be a part of it, and then it just fucking probably one of the worst mistakes of his life. I'm talking like it's real, it's not, but essentially, yeah, like people are never what they seem. Blinding. Then the final book on my best books of 2022 is The Final Emperor by Brandon Sanderson. I really enjoyed this. I don't need to say anything else because it was so much fun reading this. I loved the world building. I loved how it wasn't fancy. It was just like, this is the story. Let's just bombard you with plot twists and struggle. Like I said in my December wrap up, and like probably every video where I've discussed this, it's like an action blockbuster movie in a book form, which just makes it compelling to read, and how you can quite easily and quickly read 600 plus pages. So they were my favourite books of 2022. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a fabulous new year. I'm trying to not be in the sun, sorry everyone. Let me know what books you really enjoyed in 2022. What's your reading goal for next year? Mine is going to be, I mean next year, it's this year now. Mine's going to be 50 books. I know it's very, very ambitious for someone that only read 24 books in the previous year, but who knows? We'll see. Look at that. Oh, laters. Bye everyone.